Hey everybody, this is prisoner 830506 reporting from my prison cell at Prison 1, a private contract prison, currently housing one prisoner, that being me, under a life sentence. That means I will be barefoot, permanently double shackled, double chained, and imprisoned for the rest of my life. And once the prison opens, I will be serving life in consolidated confinement. This is going to be just a YouTube update. I don't do these very often. Most of my videos I'm posting regularly at the patreon.com/facility5. So if you have any interest in this, in my imprisonment or the future of Prison 1, if you're interested in coming to Prison 1 eventually and being a prisoner here, we're planning on building the prison, and this is going to be a lot towards that, and we're going to be talking about temporary imprisonment options that are just open up after discussing new policies with Amy. Amy's the warden at Prison 1. So to start off, this is all based around consolidated confinement, and so I'm going to explain what consolidated confinement is. In Facility 5, where I was in prison for 3.5 years, I served more than half my sentence in consolidated confinement in that prison. It was used for standby, it was used for punishment, and it was used for extending imprisonment, right? Whether willingly or unwillingly. If your third party decided they didn't want to pay for your imprisonment, they wanted time to come up with money to extend your imprisonment, they could put you in consolidated confinement, because technically your sentence was paused while you were in consolidated confinement. And later on, they knew it was getting gamed, so they made it so that you had to sign a contract. So when you go into consolidated confinement now in Facility 5, you have to stay in there for a period of time so they can re-rent your cell. And it's just a really good way for them to maintain their prison population, not letting anybody leave, basically, and allowing them to, third parties to come up with more money to keep them locked up longer. Stuff like that. So kind of shady, not the best type of imprisonment, but it is what it is. And Prison 1, there's a lot of benefits that come with consolidated confinement. First of all, I spent, over a year and a half or more in consolidated confinement, probably closer to 2 years in total. And so I know the benefits that come with putting a prisoner in that type of situation. Now, consolidated confinement is where they pack 3 prisoners and they shackle our bare feet together tightly, like within inches of our ankles, basically, from prisoner to prisoner, in a 4-foot by 8-foot concrete cell. Well, in Facility 5 was concrete. It's not going to be a concrete cell in our prison, I don't think. But in any case, you just get chained up in that cell and you stay for what appears to be an indefinite period of time. They don't set a time frame. You just go in and you come out when they decide you come out. Of course, now with the contract, there's a contract, but a contracted period, but it's based on if that prisoner that takes your cell leaves that cell, and extensions are a big thing in Facility 5. So if you sign up for a year in consolidated confinement to extend your imprisonment, you're probably going to be there much longer in consolidated confinement than 1 year, because the prisoner that takes your cell is probably going to be extended. So anyway, that's consolidated confinement. It has benefits for the prison as well as for prisoners. Let me put it this way: one of the reasons that I chose to implement consolidated confinement at Prison 1, I technically didn't implement it. I proposed it to Amy, and Amy loves the idea. That's why I spent a lot of time in consolidated confinement. She was my trusted third party in Facility 5. She is all for it. So, in fact, she's made it clear that that's going to be my designated cell for life. Like, I'm going to go into consolidated confinement, I'm never coming out. Of course, I don't believe that's going to be the case. It's just the way consolidated confinement is. It's the way, you have to train the prisoners that go in there that they're going in and they're not coming out. And that's basically, she's saying I'm going to go in for life. I'll probably be in there for many years, to be honest. It's not going to be a short time in there. But I'm going to be having to train all the prisoners that come through there on the rules of consolidated confinement and make it work, basically, in the beginning. So, yeah, So consolidated confinement in prison one is going to be slightly different since we don't have a bunch of prisoners for rotating, and in facility 5 they rotate a prisoner out every day. So you're constantly having a rotation of prisoners in your cell, and they go through each prisoner. So you're only in that cell for like 3 days, and then they pull you out and put you in another cell with two new prisoners. So it keeps it fresh because you always have a new prisoner you're chained to, right? Of course, prison one is going to be a problem for that, and that's one of the things that we were kind of having trouble with until recently, until we made the decision to mix it up a little bit. So the benefits for a prisoner in consolidated confinement is that it brainwashes prisoners into being model prisoners. Basically, after you've been in consolidated confinement for, I would say, 90 days, you are 100% brainwashed by consolidated confinement. You've become completely acclimated. You are used to being confined in a tight space, and you become a very social prisoner because you're literally chained to other prisoners 24 hours a day. And it creates a mentality in prisoners that once you get out, you can tolerate any other prisoners, because they're in other cells at that point. I mean, it's way better than tolerating a prisoner that you're literally chained to. You have a much higher tolerance. You're much less likely to cause trouble. You become a model prisoner after you spend an extended period of time in consolidated confinement. And I'm saying that 90 days is really when you hit 100%. A minimum of a month. I mean, if you go any less than a month, then you really don't fully acclimate, and literally the first week and a half or so is just pure hell, and you don't even. It's just endurance at that point. But once you've gotten past the endurance phase, you start to get used to that lifestyle in prison, and you get more used to it the longer you're in it. So, of course, chaining 3 prisoners together in consolidated confinement for 90 straight days without any rotation would be bad, right? It's just not good. So what we've decided on is that we're gonna let me break it down. So at first, when the prison opens, my bare feet are going to leave this floor forever. Like, the floor you see my toes on right now is going to be the last time that my feet ever touch this floor in the cell. That's the day we're going to start early in. Early in program is going to allow 7 prisoners to come into the prison to help build the prison. Okay, we have to get 2 40-foot containers. We're going to sandwich them together, and one side's going to be the cells, and the middle is going to be the hallway, and then we'll add another 40-foot container on the other side and build 6 more cells on the other side. So we're going to build 6 cells. We're bringing in 7 prisoners, because one of those prisoners is going to replace me. They're going to be the PLM, the prison labor manager. They're going to be in charge of the prison and all the prisoners. Amy's made it very clear that she's setting the rules for the prison, but that the PLM, she expects him to bend those rules to meet the needs, basically. So, while he'll have guidelines for running the prison, but he can basically run it however he wants, is what she's saying. She's not going to micromanage him and she wants to see how he adapts to the position, right, on his own, without anybody telling him what to do. Of course, I have the most experience, so he can always come to me and ask, if I, ask advice on how something should be done or whatever, because I've served almost 5 years in prison now. So, when the security guard that Amy's going to hire brings the prisoners from Las Vegas, because that's where you'll come to, if you're going to come to prison, we'll be arresting you and taking you from Las Vegas to the prison. I'll be pulling 1 prisoner at a time off the prison transport vehicle, which is probably going to be like a U-Haul truck or something. It's going to be very basic in the beginning. I will process all those prisoners in one by one, and I will weld their shackles around their ankles and put them on the chain. Once I get all 7 prisoners on the chain, I'm going to put myself on the chain using a padlock that I don't have a key to. So I'm a prisoner just like everybody else at that point. However, that first week on the chain, I will be in charge of the chain. During that week, though, I'm going to have to pick somebody on the chain that's going to be the PLM. And from that point forward, once they take that responsibility, they become in charge of me and all the other prisoners. They're officially, even though they're chained to us, they are going to be the PLM from that point forward. Together, all 8 of us will be building the prison cells. Now, Amy wants to do a premium option for prisoners that are coming in early in. So if you pay a premium, you'll be able to, once your cell is built, you'll be able to leave the chain and go to your cell at nighttime when we're not working, right? But during the day, you'll be back on the chain for work detail until everything's built. You got to build 6 cells, 6 regular cells and 4 consolidated confinement cells. That's the 4 foot by 8 foot cells, and then we'll have to build out the kitchen and some other utility stuff. But at that point, once the 6 cells are built, only me and the PLM will be on the chain at nighttime, and we're going to be chained up on the floor. Basically, it's not a comfortable situation. But that's what he takes on because he's the PLM. Once everything's built, I go into consolidated confinement to be permanently put in there, apparently for the rest of my life. And he's going to come to my cell, and it's going to be his new cell. Once the PLM is off the chain, he's going to choose 2 prisoners from the newly built cells to join me in consolidated confinement. And this is where it kind of gets switched up. So one of those prisoners is going to go long-term, and the other one's going to be short-term. Neither one of the prisoners is going to know which one of them is the long-term and short-term. The long-term is a minimum of 90 days, so it's not even set to 90 days. It could be 90 days, it could be 6 months, it could be a year, it could be forever. Probably not forever. But the short-term prisoner has to go in for a minimum of 30 days. So that could be 30 days, it could be 2 months, it could be 3 months, it could be a week, 6 months, whatever. The PLM has absolute control over who goes in and how long they stay in there. But there's going to be a general rule. One of the prisoners is going to be designated long-term, and they won't know which one it is. None of us will know. And it could be changed at the last minute, too. So that gives us the rotation, but also the longevity of consolidated confinement. So eventually every prisoner will go through 90 days in consolidated confinement consecutively. If you win the lottery and you go in short term, then you'll be out in like a month, maybe 2 months, and then there'll be a new prisoner that replaces you. And it might go on sort of a staggered thing where the long-term prisoner is, gets out after a couple months of the other prisoner or a month after the other prisoner, and then that prisoner takes over as the long-term and a new prisoner comes in. So it's going to be kind of it's going to be switched up so that we're not chaining 3 prisoners together for 90 plus days consecutively, right? There's still going to be some kind of rotation. This also gives a lot more freedom to allowing new prisoners to come in, because now we can pull prisoners into those empty cells, and there's not a strict time limit, right? It's not like it was before. You can come in for a month, but then you have to get out after a month because that prisoner has to come back to their cell. Now it's kind of up in the air. So you could come in for a month and stay longer, right? Or we could double book it or book it for another prisoner after you leave or whatever. And then also, this is, and I'm going to tell you a story about a prisoner that I was chained to in consolidated confinement in Facility 5. He claimed he had been in prison there at Facility 5 for over 20 years. So he was a long-term prisoner for sure. And he was only supposed to be in for 30 days. So this is another involuntary prisoner. There's unlimited numbers of involuntary prisoners who came in expecting to be in prison for a month or 3 months, and ended up staying forever, right? So, first of all, he was a prisoner. He was a successful guy, right? They had multiple houses, multiple cars, a boat. He made good money, and he was just busy. He was like working 16 hours a day, and he just hated his life, and he acted like a shithead, right? He was screwing around. He was having sex with all kinds of people. His wife caught him on video having sex with his secretary, and that's where his life ended. There, right? Because she brought the video out and said, okay, we can either go to court, everybody in your family, your friends, your business acquaintances, can see this video, and the court will probably, give me everything because you're a piece of shit. Or we can just pretend this didn't happen. You can go to prison first for 30 days as punishment. It gives us time apart. When you get back, we'll renegotiate, and I'll own you because of this imprisonment. I can always put you back in prison if you step out of line. So he agreed to prison because, most of them, well, all of them do, right? All the ones I've ever met. I wouldn't have met him if they didn't accept prison. So he got in, and by the time his bare feet touched the floor of his luxury cell, he's a rich guy, so that was part of the deal. He got an upper level luxury cell. He didn't have to, he didn't have to be a bad, a low level prisoner anyway. By the time his bare feet touched the floor of that cell, he had already been extended 5 years. And then by the end of the month, he had been extended to 10 years. And by the end of the year, he had been extended to 15 years. And he was going on over 20 years at this point. And he said that basically, maybe it was because he had a long sentence right from the beginning and he knew there was no way out, that he just kind of settled in. But he realized really early on that prison was way better than his life before. Like I mentioned this before, when you're in a private contract prison, this isn't like a government prison where you can get raped in the shower or, curb stomped by, gang members or whatever. It's a safe place, right? And the luxury cells are actually nice. You've seen my cell, probably. It's a nice place to be, right? It's all going to go away when I go to consolidated confinement. It sucks. But anyway, the point is that he realized almost right away that he was better off in prison. Like, he had no responsibilities. Nobody was coming to him. He didn't have to worry about some lawsuits that were coming after him. They had to go after his wife, so she had to go to court, and he didn't have to go. All kinds of shit, right? And that's how it is in prison, especially a contract prison. Even if you come to prison and you're not even into the whole imprisonment, his feet were permanently shackled, so he wasn't into foot fetishes or shackles or anything like that. He had to adapt to those things. Well, everybody does. But he recognized right away that basically being in prison is being like a child again, right? You have no cares in the world. You have zero responsibility. Nobody expects anything from you except for you to obey anybody that stands in front of your cell door. And then once they go, you're free. You can do whatever you want in your prison cell. You could, watch movies, play video games, chat to your friends, jerk off, whatever, take a nap. You have zero responsibilities all of a sudden. And you don't realize the freedom of that until you've been chained up and locked in a prison cell, right? He has 3 meals that are delivered to his cell every day, right? Room service. He doesn't have to worry about getting a job, going to work. He just wakes up, plays video games, does whatever he wants, and has no care in the world, right? He knows that he's going to be in prison for 10, 15 years at that point, and that's a freeing experience to know that someone's going to take care of you for the next 15 years, and you don't have to do anything except for obey, just basic orders and shit, right? And that's a very alluring feeling. Like, once you get into prison, once you get past your fetishes and stuff, because anybody that's come to prison one's going to have fetishes. They're going to want to be here because they're into this, right? They're into the shackling, the bare feet, or the prison or whatever, right? Once you get past that initial excitement for the fetish part, you're going to realize it goes way deeper, right? Imprisonment is you're more free in prison than you are outside of prison. There's so much. You're basically a slave to society and when you're out of prison. In prison, you're basically the freest you can be, not physically, but mentally. So the biggest fear of prisoners in Prison 1 or Facility 5 is being evicted from their homes, right? once you're in your cell for a while, it becomes your home, and you want to be there, right? Then, of course, you have moments where you would do anything to have the shackles off and you'd be free to go outside and do stuff, but you never really want it on a permanent basis, right? Once you've been in prison and you make it your home, it's you look for you want a vacation from prison, but you always want to come back. This is your home. Why would you want to leave it, right? And you don't want the responsibilities and stuff that you had in your previous life, but you do want to go, like I always want a Big Mac, or go out and outside without my feet being shackled, stuff like that. You do want that on occasion, but since you don't have that option, it's kind of it's fleeting, right? And you move on. And as a whole, you definitely do not want to leave prison. So when you're in a prison like Facility 5, where they're just nickel and diming you every second, and the only way to stay in prison is to suffer, in consolidated confinement, or do mandatory hard labor, or just have someone that has enough money to spend on your imprisonment, it becomes problematic. That's your biggest worry when you're in prison at Facility 5, is that how long are you going to be able to stay in prison, right? How long until they kick you out, right? So he made it clear to his wife that he didn't want out of prison. He was just telling her, just sign me up for life already and get it over with. She realized that she had him over a barrel at that point, and she said, no, I don't have enough money to keep you in prison, so if you want to stay in prison, then you have to go through consolidated confinement. And that's where his bare feet got chained to my bare feet. Is because he was willing to go through consolidated confinement to maintain his imprisonment. Even though it was terrible to be in consolidated confinement, and he was going to be in there for a good amount of time, he knew when he got out, he would have more time in his regular cell, right? His luxury cell. So that's one thing that I really want to focus on Prison 1, is that when you sign up for prison, and our entry fee is really low. And basically, you're just paying an entry fee and a processing fee, and it's life. Like, you can stay for the rest of your life on that much. Of course, we're going to hopefully be able to pull in enough money to sustain the prison and build it up from temporary prisoners. And this is why this consolidated confinement program comes in so handy, is because you can come in and kind of tip your toe in the water, you put your toes in the water, and feel the chains and live in a cell for a little while. And if it really caters to you, you don't have to leave, right? And what I'm saying is, when you sign a contract, it's for life. Is, first of all, we issue a prisoner ID, which is yours for life. So you might as well get a tattoo if you're coming in for the long term or permanently, because you'll have to do the branding like I do, which I'm not doing in this video. So bad example, but once the prison is open, that will be mandatory, and it'll be punishable. If you don't have your prisoner ID, your temporary tattoo on your feet, you'll get punished. So if you want to avoid having to put that on and maintain it, then you could just get a permanent tattoo. If you're going to be in prison for the rest of your life, you might as well. I should have done that a long time ago, but I didn't know I was going to be life in prison at the time. And at the time that I did decide to come to Prison 1 and be a life prisoner, I was in consolidated confinement, and they don't allow us to get tattoos in consolidated confinement. So, and I just haven't got one here because, first of all, we'd have to bring a tattoo artist here, or Amy would have to take me in chains to a tattoo parlor to have it done. It's just something we haven't gotten around to. Eventually, I will have a permanent tattoo. In fact, we're talking about the possibility of bringing a tattoo artist to the prison to tattoo prisoners' feet who choose to do that for free. But anyway, I'm completely off topic at this point. So what was I even talking about? So basically, we're never going to kick any prisoners out of Prison 1. It's just not even going to be a thing. Unless there's something that's over and above our pay grade. Like, you've attracted a disease that's terminal, and you require special treatment or whatever that we can't accommodate in the prison. Then, of course, that would be a point where we might have to remove you from the prison, because we just can't accommodate your ailment or whatever. But if you're an able-bodied prisoner and you never request a release, you'll never be released. And that's kind of how this is going to work. Is that when you sign up for to be a prisoner at Prison One, it's a double sentence. Like, so, say for instance you sign up temporarily for 30 days. We can hold you for another 30 days. It's double sentence. We probably won't, but it is on the table. If you're a bad prisoner, we can, and when you request release, we can deny it and keep you in prison as punishment, basically for acting out or being a bad prisoner. Of course, if you're a good prisoner and you need to catch a plane, and we're also accommodating for that. We're not gonna hold you against your will. For that extra extension period if there's no reason to do so, right? But it also gives you the right to stay imprisoned on a more legitimate basis beyond your original sentence. So if, say, for instance, you sign up for a month and you just don't want to go, but you're not ready to extend for a year, and I think that's still basically how it's going to work. You can come in part-time, short-term, for your initial sentence, but if you want to stay and you want to extend your sentence, the only option is 1 year. So if, say for instance, you come in for 1 month and you really like staying here, but you're not sure you want to sign up for a year, you can just not apply for a release, and you'll just stay imprisoned for that next month, basically. And as long as there's nothing serious going on in the prison, like overcrowding or anything, you could probably most likely stay in the cell that you paid for, right? However, when you're on extension, we can move you to floating status, and that's a floating prisoner. It means you no longer have a designated cell, and we can put you anywhere, right? You could end up in consolidated confinement, and again, you're on extension. You could request release if you don't want to be in consolidated confinement. And as long as you're not a bad prisoner, you'll get approved. Now, keep in mind that there is some logistics involved. Just because you request release doesn't mean you're getting released right away. There's going to be processing, exit interviews, and all that stuff. And on top of that, logistics. The prison's pretty far from Vegas, so it'll probably be scheduled for an incoming prisoner. We'll be taking you to Vegas, dropping you off to pick up another prisoner to bring to the prison, something like that, right? So you might remain in prison for a week or two, or possibly even a month, beyond the time that you've requested. Of course, if you request while you're currently serving your sentence, your main sentence, before reaching extension, we can probably accommodate you if there's special needs, special requirements like catching a plane or having to be back to work at a certain time. That's probably something we can probably accommodate. Again, we want to build a prison community. We want you to come back. We want you to have a pleasant experience. We're not here to kind of fuck with you and be dicks, right? So, however, now, say you sign up for a month and you decide not to extend, but you don't apply for a release. You go to the end of your second month. Now you're off, right? Now you become what we consider a transient prisoner. So at that point, you'll be removed for the cell. I mean, you've gone past your time, and you become what we call a transient prisoner, and you'll end up in consolidated confinement, or chained to a wall, or wherever we decide that you need to be, right? At that point, you're not officially a prisoner. It's kind of hard to say, hard to explain, but your contract is ended. You just haven't left, right? So at that point, if you were to sign up again for, say for instance, you stay your 2 months, you're already off the contract, you're just a transient prisoner. You're just a prisoner that's locked up here with no contract really with us. You'll be in consolidated confinement most likely. And say you spend 2 weeks in consolidated confinement and you're just not liking it, right? You're just thinking, oh, this kind of sucks. I'd like to get it back into a regular cell. At that point, you're the same as a person that's outside of prison, except you have the benefit of actually being in prison. So you get pushed up the list. So at that point, you'd have to apply to be a prisoner again, to come back to the prison, even though you're still a prisoner here, a transient prisoner. You would have to pay your fee, just like you would if you were outside of the prison. However, you wouldn't have to pay for processing because you've already been processed. You're still shackled. You're still in the prison. You don't have to reprocess you. And at that point, you would get the next cell. You'd bump up the list from anybody that was on the waiting list that's outside the prison. You would just circumvent them completely and take over the cell. And that's a benefit that you have by maintaining your imprisonment as a transient prisoner. You can keep it short. You can do another short term because you're signing up all over again, basically. And you wouldn't have to do the 1-year extension, right? So there's some options for us. And this really kind of builds the prison up. So it gives us an option to allow for standby prisoners as well. It's technically, as a transient prisoner, you're in standby, technically. However, if another prisoner signs up for standby and they're actually on standby and they paid their fees for the next upcoming cell, they're going to circumvent you because you're a transient prisoner and they're coming in for the purpose that they came in before you signed up, right? So they would take precedence if they came in as a standby prisoner. And that's if we just don't have any cells available. Say, for instance, you really want to get in, you're going to be off work for this month, and you won't be able to take any other time off after that, and you really want to get into a cell. You could come in on standby, and when that cell comes available, we pull you from consolidated confinement and put you in your cell, right? Again, this is all contingent on your entry fee and processing. There's really no other required payment from prisoners that are in prison. And this is going to be subsidized by new prisoners coming in and also the media channel, the media series that we want to do. We're going to be doing a weekly show, basically showing all the prisoners in prison and their daily lives and stuff and how they live their lives, including the prisoners in consolidated confinement. It's not going to be like Facility 5 where I couldn't show any of that. But you're going to see what it's like to live in consolidated confinement on video. Of course, it's going to be very locked down. There's going to be blurring faces and stuff. There's going to be a lot of just close-ups on feet, like you see here, for that reason, to maintain privacy of the prisoners and stuff like that. And also for the fetish value, of course. But so you're going to see filthy, prisoners' bare feet chained together in consolidated confinement. And you're going to see prisoners living their life in their prison cell. You're gonna have interviews with those prisoners and prisoners in consolidated confinement about their life in prison and what they like and what they don't like and stuff like that. And they could even get personal, like relationships stuff and work related things. There's going to be prison labor workers in prison 1, so we'll be showing prisoners working and doing stuff. If it gets boring, we might have an event where we have a chain gang where prisoners are working in the yard, and that would be recorded. So there's going to be a lot that goes into that show. It's not going to be boring like this one. It'll be we believe it'll fund the prison. The prison's overhead is extremely low. It's completely prisoner operated, right? We don't have to hire anybody to come in and work as staff or anything. The prisoners are doing all the work in the prison. Even the prison labor manager is a prisoner, right? He's literally the warden of the prison, the acting warden in the prison, and he's a prisoner himself. The only person we're going to be hiring is one security guard that's just going to act as a backup to come in and subdue a prisoner if we can't subdue him in our bare feet and shackles, right? She'll have the equipment, like riot equipment and all that stuff for that type of scenario. But mostly she's going to be handling deliveries to the prison and just making sure that none of us escape the property, right? And the rest is all pre-bought, right? We bought the buildings ahead of time. We're on solar, so we don't have to worry about bills like that. Our internet bills, it's a gigabit internet, and we'll be sharing it, and it's like $90 a month or something. So our overhead's going to be really low. It's just basically the cost of food, and we're already talking about building what are they called, greenhouses and stuff like that, and putting prisoners to work in production of food and stuff like that. So and believe me, when you're locked in your cell 24 hours a day, it's not slave labor when we come to you and say, hey, do you want to go out and work in the farm? You know, it's time out of your cell. It's time with your bare feet on soft dirt instead of, you know, the cold concrete of your prison cell. And there's going to be a lot of security involved with that. You're going to be chained to your position and stuff for work positions and stuff. So don't think it's going to be, you know, too much freedom. But yeah, we're going to make it work, and it's going to be awesome. But it's just going to take a while to get to that point. But anyway, thanks for watching. If you like this and you want more, come over to patreon.com/facility5 for updated information. I post there pretty much every week. I miss a week here and there when there's nothing to talk about, but for the most part, it's weekly updates there, and you can ask questions, and I'll answer them in the videos, and it's fun times, and it's not that expensive. It's $5 for the basic, but if you get the $20, you get the ASMR version, I guess you could call it, the Prison Sounds episode. That's just this video without me talking. You can just hear my chains and stuff. That's just an extra bonus if you go with the $20 plan, which I recommend you do since we need the money to get this prison started. Anyway, thanks for watching. Until then. Oh, by the way, I've been in prison for 5 years now, almost 5 years. I shackled my feet. I was barefoot way before I shackled them, so I've been barefoot for more than 5 years. But I've shackled my feet, I think it was like the 5th of May in 2018. So, like, you know, a month and a half from now, I will have been shackled for 5 years. So that's a pretty good milestone, I think. It's just the start of my entire life since they're welded on, and Amy's never going to take them off. But I guess it's a good start. 5 years is quite a bit of time. But anyway, until next time, I will be barefoot, double shackled, double chained, and imprisoned here for the rest of my life. Thanks for watching.